Good afternoon, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. Yes, you're probably wondering why the fuck I'm home rather than at work in my coat that I seem to wear all the bloody time, even in summer. But no, I've got the bloody lurgy. Something awful, actually. So, it's Lemsip for me for pretty much the whole day. And nothing fucking else. Actually, no, sod that. I'm going to have some chocolate as well, because goodbye problems, at least for the next 5 minutes. But of course, you didn't come here to find out that I am trying to recover from the cold that I currently have. No, I wanted to mention a little more about the politics going on. So, where do I begin? Well, I obviously mentioned about Axel Radakabana, the Islamic scumbag who basically went out of his way to kill 3 children and wounded 10 more people. God rest the souls of those poor kids. But I also mentioned the fact that Tommy Robinson is currently having to preside in the same prison as that subhuman scum. And that is the only way I'm going to look at them, because that is exactly what they are. They are people that shouldn't even be breathing in our oxygen, quite frankly. But I don't want to talk too much about him, since I've pretty much done a video about him already. But what I will say is that surely we shouldn't be putting Tommy Robinson, like I reiterated in the first video that I did yesterday, but surely Tommy Robinson shouldn't even be in a Category A prison. He shouldn't even be in a category stroke number 1. I see the cold hasn't done me any favours with that. Anyway, he shouldn't even be in a Cat A prison. He shouldn't even be in a Category C prison, let alone a fucking Cat A. But those words will be falling on deaf ears with Keir the Traitor Starmer. And of course, Jenny, totally not a DEI hire, Louis. But I digress. There is no way that Keir the Traitor Starmer can keep all of this stum for much longer. He has put himself in what I would consider a checkmate position. He has already earned the ire of all of the British people. He's screwed the country as far as energy is concerned. He's handed over control of our army to the EU, which, last time I checked, that's our army, not yours or the EU's, Keir the Traitor Starmer. They are the people's army. They are there so that when the ordinary indigenous person is unable to defend themselves, the army comes in and takes out the trash. They aren't there to be part of the fucking EU. Now let me be clear. This is just part of the EU bloc specifically. It doesn't mean I'm against our own soldiers helping out with European needs if necessary, but it must be within reason. Because obviously, they're meant to protect our country first, and I suspect they'll be needed when revolution comes for Keir the Traitor Starmer. Because, as I've said before, and will say repeatedly, I think the cold bitter truth is, we are heading towards a violent revolution. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. It entirely depends upon when the British people will finally wake up and say, enough's enough. It is time for them to start thinking about what they're going to do, quite frankly. I don't advocate for violent revolution. I don't particularly want violent revolution, despite me repeatedly talking about it over and over again. No, I've always said I'm against that shit. But there are times where you're going to be in a live or die scenario. And when you're sitting there and you're literally having to fight for your life, it's not going to be a matter of, oh, well, I can't kill him because I'll break the law and I'll get arrested. No, if someone is literally going to come at you with a knife, for example, like they're intending to kill you, your first thoughts aren't going to be, oh, I better not break the law. No, your thoughts are going to be, I need to defend myself. I need to save myself. I need to, if I cannot run from the situation, I need to stab him back or something. That's the bottom line. When we're in a life and death situation, we're not going to be thinking about what's legal or what's morally correct. We're going to be thinking, it's us or them. I tell you what, if someone comes into my house wanting to kill me, it's going to be fucking them. Mark my words. If someone comes in my house and tries to kill me, I'm fucking fighting back. If someone comes in my house trying to kill me, I am going to do everything I can to make sure that person who's come into my house is dead. Simple as that. He comes into my house, I'm going to make sure he either seriously regrets coming into my house, or he's going to be on the floor in a pool of his own blood. That's called self-defense. That's something the mainstream media are not going to like. Nor's my hand for hitting the handle of that pan. Anyway, that's not something the mainstream media or the police are not going to like. But the cold, bitter truth is, if you put anyone in that situation, they're going to choose themselves over letting other people kill them. And it's exactly the same scenario with this violent revolution that I think is coming. It is going to be, the ordinary people are going to be walking out those streets. Pitchforks, torches, clubs, knives, whatever they can get their hands on. Because they're going to realise, if we don't do something about this, we're going to end up dead because of Keir the Traitor Starmer. That's the cold, bitter truth. And as I said, someone comes in, I'm not going to hesitate. I'm going to be taking action. Just like that. Because that's what you have to do to save your own skin. And we should not have to worry about, oh, well, I might be breaking the law here. Let me be clear, I've never advocated for that. Not even when it comes down to TV licensing. And I fucking detest those cunts. But I will advocate for defending yourself in your own fucking home. Keir the Traitor Starmer, I suspect, though, would have you removed of those rights. I suspect he would do everything he can, much like he is right now, trying to get rid of everyone's liberties to go out and protest, how he tried to quell dissenters who were saying that this Radha guy was not a Muslim when he actually was. They falsely persecuted them under false information. They claimed that we should do all we can to stop the spread of misinformation. Yvette Cooper even suggested that shit. So now that the truth has actually come out, and it turns out the ordinary people were telling the truth, when are you going to resign, Yvette? Sounds like to me that you've already spread a shitload of misinformation. So I expect you to be out of that office, just like that. Oh, that's right. Rules for thee, but not for me. That's always the case with you treacherous politicians. Like, as soon as someone comes in and does that shit, you're like, he must go, he must go, she must go, get rid of them, they're fired, they're cancelled, blah, blah, blah. And then when it's you, it's like, oops, I did a little fucky wucky, didn't I? Ooh. Yeah, fuck off with your two-tier standards. You're not winning anybody's votes with this, Yvette Cooper. You, Keir the Traitor Starmer, Angela Rayner, David the Knob Lammy, or is it David the Archbishop of Racism Lammy? You all need to go. You need to be out of office because you have no right to stay here at this point. You have no right whatsoever to stay in office after all the shit that you've done. David Lammy in particular for alienating Donald Trump. As Foreign Secretary, your civic duty is to make sure we have good relationships with everyone. And yet you, David, Archbishop of Racism, Lammy, you've done the polar opposite. When Donald Trump gets into power, because it is absolutely undoubtable that he will, he is going to take out the trash And you're probably the first person on his hit list, David Lammy. And then followed immediately after that by Keir The Traitor Starmer. Because you two, well, you're made for each other. Because you're a pair of wankers. As I've said to Keir The Traitor Starmer, the only hard decision he has to make is whether he knocks one out in his bed or not. That's the way I look at it. The bottom line, as far as Radakabana is concerned, is it's now been proven unequivocally when he was shown to have an Al-Qaeda manual and he was producing ricin. For those that don't know, even 0.5 gram, I believe, of this ricin is so toxic and deadly to humans. And that's just to kill one human. He was producing this shit. Which means, I guarantee you, he's not producing 0.5 milligram of ricin on its own. No, you can bet with that shit. He was going to produce enough of this stuff to kill a whole bunch of people. I mean, he already made the intentions pretty clear when he went and stabbed 3 kids at a Taylor Swift dance class. But our police wanted to say, this is not terrorism, and we don't know the motive. Last time I checked, the whole definition of terrorism is an attack that is supposed to instill terror and fear into your enemies. Where do you strike at their heart for this? Kids. Ariana Grande concert actually is a very big example of that. Gays were targeted, children were targeted, all manners of people were targeted when that bomber went in and blew up a whole bunch of people and made the syrup go into the washing bowl. Anyway, he went in, blew up a whole bunch of people. That instilled a great deal of terror. Any kids getting involved in this shit, obviously unwillingly, because they wouldn't ever want someone to go around and commit terrorism, unless they're terrorist sympathisers, but I digress. But any children getting targeted in this shit, I'm sorry, that unequivocally relates to an act of terrorism. You can't sit here and honestly say that a guy, a teenager, going into a dance class and stabbing 3 beautiful girls is not an act of terrorism. That's like looking at me and saying, I am a fitness role model. Yeah, not gonna fucking happen with the amount of fucking roles I have. But I digress. This isn't about what I look like. Keir The Traitor Starmer had the audacity to say that you can either work with the police, or working with the police, or you're undermining the police. No, Keir The Traitor Starmer, we are not trying to undermine the police. We might hate the police for their 2-tier policing. We might hate the police for some of the despicable decisions they have made. But we don't want to sabotage the police. The police do a good enough job of that themselves. Like, why would we need to go out of our way to go and bash on the fucking Metropolitan Police, or any police force for that matter, when it's very obvious we see who they're siding with? They're siding with Islam, they're siding with terrorism, they're siding with a 2-tier government. They're doing everything they can to basically serve anyone other than the British people. You know, the people they're supposed to serve and protect. And I know that's an Americanism, but it does also apply to this country. No, they'd rather go out and arrest people for making mean tweets on the internet. They'd rather arrest people who are saying, we should burn the hotels. And if only Lucy Connolly had actually gone out of her way to say, when they're empty of migrants, then she probably wouldn't have gotten into trouble, quite frankly. Although, that being said, she is still technically inciting crime. She is going out of her way to encourage people to break the law. So I guess she was kind of dead to rights on that one. But I'm not here to nitpick and argue the pedantics of all this shit. I'm here to argue about the situation with this country. And the way I look at it, I think we are going to end up seeing a violent revolution, whether we want it or not. Tommy doesn't want it. Mark Toosey and Paul Thorpe don't want it. Richard Inman and Liam Tufts don't want it. I sure as shit don't want it. But what we want, well, the cold pit of truth does not care for what we want or how we feel about it. Because what it comes down to is, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen regardless. Whether 100% of the people want it or 1% of the people want it. I can't stop that. Tommy can't stop that. Nobody in this country can stop that. It comes down to, how soon is it going to happen, folks? And if it does happen, Keir the Traitor Starmer and the whole of the establishment, media, police, judiciary, everyone, they've only got themselves to blame. They're not going to be able to go over to someone who conveniently has their hand in the cookie jar at a different time and say, oh, you see, it's his fault. It's his fault that's all happened. No, you're not going to be able to say that, because all the events that have been building up to this point have been done by you, Keir the Traitor Starmer. You directly incited those Southport riots. You directly incited hatred towards the government because of your actions. And the mainstream media have incited this hatred as well towards white working class people by describing them all as far right, when they're merely just concerned parents and patriots who don't want their kids getting stabbed in the face. But of course the mainstream media won't tell you this. You know the drill, folks, because, say it with me, it doesn't suit the narrative. And bear in mind, when they try to put out their false narratives as well, I've mentioned it time and time again, I will say it here as well. If they are willfully lying about the British people, if they're willfully lying about Tommy Robinson, or an argued statistic of people, aka the working class, then every time they report a falsehood, they're breaking Section 2 of the 2006 Fraud Act. Which means every single article that they put out against the British people is indubitably libelous slander and in contravention of that very act. And if our police actually had any balls, whether up here or down there, or in my case both, the media, they'd all be in prison. Just like that. Because they would all be unequivocally guilty. They would all be guilty of fraud by false representation. Just like they want to claim that Tommy Robinson is guilty for basically stating false information. The judge who looked at this case even said there was no misinformation in this documentary known as Silenced. In fact, the fact that the media are trying to spin this and say it was false information, that in and of itself contributes to Section 2 of the 2006 Fraud Act. How long do you think it will take for the media to understand this? Do you think they're going to want to admit to this? Of course they fucking won't. They won't admit this. They're not journalists. They're activists. Tommy Robinson has done stroke number 2. Tommy has done more for journalism in the last 2 or 3 years than you, the mainstream media, have done as far as the grooming gangs are concerned and Islam over the last 20 or 30 fucking years. That's why you don't like Tommy Robinson. He's made you all look bad. He's bloodied your nose. He's bloodied your face. He's made you all look stupid. And you're not happy with that. Your pride and your ego has been so badly bruised that you have gone out of your way to do a malicious campaign. And so has Hope Not Hate's Nick Lowles. They've gone out of their way on a malicious campaign to destroy Tommy Robinson's life. And they'll do anything they can to destroy anyone whose supposed far right does not suit the narrative of the mainstream media or the left-wing globalist Marxist agenda that they have. Hell, Nick Lowles even said, we are going to look for any more people who are showing this documentary or showing more misinformation. Last time I checked, the injunction was against Tommy Robinson, not ordinary British people. So if that's truly the case, you can't actually stop us from putting the Silence documentary out there, which means your ability to stop us has been completely neutered. Just like that. What say you, Nick Lowles? What say you? The same man who is part of an organisation that overinflates figures of hate crime by 3,000%. Nothing you said after that point, Nick Lowles, or is it Nick Liar Lowles, should ever be taken as credible. Yet you have your NPCs in the media and even in the UN who take your word as gospel. No facts, no evidence, just speculation, and they take it like it is the word of God. Well, I don't know what God you worship, but it sure as shit ain't Christianity. I'm not even Christian myself, but you know what? I do believe there's a man or woman upstairs. I personally imagine God having a big pair of tits and, well, delivering out justice in whichever way she sees fit. Anyway, the point is, Nick Lowles, you have no power over the British people. Keir the Traitor Starmer has no power over the ordinary British people. The judiciary, if they are falsely labelling us as criminals when we have committed no crimes, have no power over the ordinary British people. All you do by sentencing political prisoners is you prove people like me, people like Tommy, people like Carl Benjamin, people like Andrew Bridgens, people like Maya Toosey, Richard Inman, you prove us all right. You prove to us that you do things based off of emotions rather than evidence. Now the difference with me is I can put a hell of a lot of passion into what I say and still give logical reasoning and facts. Same with Richard Inman. Same with Tommy Robinson. Tommy is a bit like me in a sense. He can be a little bit impulsive. And I know, as sure as shit, I am quite impulsive indeed. Keir the Traitor Starmer, on the other hand, he has all the time in the world to look at the facts presented in front of him, and then he says, nah, I don't want that. I want that lying sack of shit over there. That's Keir the Traitor Starmer in a nutshell. He is the sort of person who, if there was a war going on, and he was expecting, if his troops were expecting him to give a moralizing speech, like a morale-boosting speech, he'd probably say, you're all going to die, and then walk away. Because that's what Keir the Traitor Starmer does. He turns his back on people. He stabs them in the back. He screws over the elderly. Robin Hood. Robin Bastard. In a nutshell. Keir the Traitor Starmer has nothing good about him other than the fact he does serve as a perfect role model of what not to be as far as Prime Minister is concerned. The way I look at it, he could not have done a worse job as Prime Minister, even if he was handed the Al-Qaeda manual, quite frankly. And this is no longer alleged stuff. Axel Radukabana is being charged under, I think it's the Biological Weapons and Counter-Terrorism Act, or something like that. So unequivocally, it's going to prove beyond and to the inclusion of every reasonable doubt that Radukabana is an Islamic terrorist. Need I say more? But the police will say, we mustn't speculate. Now, we've already got the facts in front of us, matey, and if you can't read the facts, if you can't read the room, then frankly, you need to get a new pair of specs, or contact lenses, or you just need a good checkup from the neck up. That's the way I look at it. What's going to happen as well to Ricky Cutthroats Jones? Please explain. He's on bail. Hugh Edwards, suspended sentence. Tommy Robinson, custodial sentence. And let me go back on this as well, because I want to make it very clear as to the two-tier nature of this. Axel will be facing trial in January. I'll just repeat that. Axel, confirmed terrorist, confirmed murderer, confirmed to have injured 10 people alongside the 3 dead, God rest their souls. His trial begins in January. Tommy Robinson, for contempt of court, and I do accept that they delayed it from July, but he was brought into the police station on the 24th of October. On the 26th, he was sentenced. Or was it the 27th? But he was sentenced within a week. Axel Radukabana doesn't even face sentencing until next fucking year. Two-tier justice at its finest. But you know what, Keir the Traitor Starmer? You keep lying. You keep pretending that there is no such thing as two-tier policing or two-tier justice. You conveniently sweep it all under the rug, like it's not there. Meanwhile, the rest of us people living on that faraway distant land called the real world, we're going to keep calling out your treachery, your deceit, your dishonesty, your blatant sabotage for what it truly is. Keir the Traitor Starmer. And as I've said before, I will never stop calling you that. I may accidentally address you as Keir Starmer, but you will always be, in my eyes, Keir the Traitor, sectarianist bastard Starmer. Because that's what you are. Like I said, the definition of sectarianism is when a person goes out of their way to protect a specific characteristic or a specific group of people over everyone else. So when Keir the Traitor Starmer said, I will do everything I can to protect the Muslim community, what he was realistically saying, bear with me, bloody cough is acting up again. Anyway, when he said that, what he really meant was, I will protect the Muslim community and fuck everyone else. Because a Prime Minister's duties, as I said, are twofold. Protect the realm and all of its inhabitants. Not one section. Because he is picking one section, he is unequivocally a sectarianist Prime Minister. I don't think this country has had one other Prime Minister that's gone out of their way to say, fuck the rest of the British people, I'm only looking after one group. Rishi didn't do that. David the con man Cameron didn't do that. Gordon the bully and blundering Brown didn't do that. Tony the war criminal Blair didn't do that. Treasoner Theresa May did not do that. Boris the Clown Johnson did not do that. Edward Heath did not do that. But you have, Keir the Traitor Starmer. You've turned your back on the people who need you most. Let that sink in. I know I've already paid my respects to Peter Lynch at that rally, the 1-minute silence that was observed by all the people who attended that protest. But I don't think we can truly pay enough of our respects to Peter Lynch. I only hope that one day we can actually get a government that truly understands the heartache the British people went through, that understands what Peter Lynch went through. Political prisoner, telling the police they're protecting the people who are killing and raping our kids. Sent to jail over it. Demonised by Anne Witless Widdecombe. And Nigel Farage and Richard Tice want to constantly slander us. As I said, I don't think we're going to get any reform with Nigel's party. Not anymore. I think they've already done irreparable damage to their party, quite frankly. The moment Richard Tice came out and said they're part of Tommy's lot, or that lot, the credibility of that party went up in smoke. Just like that. Because it is a complete bitch move to basically alienate the very people who voted for you. Let me remind you something, Richard Tice, Nigel the phony Farage. When that protest took place on the 27th of July, Tommy Robinson asked how many people voted for the Conservatives. No one put their hands up. Then he asked, how many of you voted Labour? No one put their hands up. No one cheered. As soon as he asked, how many of you voted Reform? There was unanimous cheering and applause. Your voters, Nigel Farage. And for you to basically take them. Not the Lemsip though. That's staying with me. Anyway, you took them and you literally threw them under the bus. Hung them out to dry. You indubitably stabbed them all in the back. And you're expecting us to vote you. I've got a nice little 4-letter acronym for you. FORN. Technically 5 or 6 if you want to include YC. You can fuck off right now. Because I will never vote Reform now. First time, I could forgive it. Second time, okay, you're pushing it. 3 times? Is there a hidden message about this? Is there a hidden message in there that is screaming out to me to say, don't do it? That's basically what I feel with Reform right now. I feel like, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. 3 times, no more. I am not voting for Reform at the next general election. I am voting UKIP under Nick Tenconi. Because I think he has got the balls, whether up here or down there, or in my case both, to side with the very people who are passionate about their country, who care about Great Britain and their kids, and just want the best for their country. Nigel Farage is in it for the accolades. Witless Widdecombe, I used to think had a great deal of intelligence, but she really blundered on this. And I must admit, when I first heard that she was blaming Peter Lynch for being a rioter for holding a placard, I must admit, I was like, what? Because it was shocking that someone of her stature could make such a blundering mistake. This isn't a matter of, oh, I slipped on a banana skin. This is a matter of, I slipped on a giant rock in front of me and propelled myself over a fucking cliff kind of mistake. Way I look at it, I don't think we should be voting reform anymore, in my humble opinion, which is subjective, as always. But I don't think we should put our faith in people who, I accept, they want to play the long game. Devil's advocate here. I accept they're probably playing the long game. And they probably do have some plans similar to what we want, but they don't want to make it apparent yet, because they want to slip under the radar. We don't have fucking time for these games. We don't need change in the next 3 or 4 years. We need change now. The cold, bitter truth is we don't have 3 or 4 years to wait. You'll be lucky if we have 3 to 6 months, let alone 3 to 4 years. And Keir the Traitor Starmer says, judge me in 5 years' time. Yeah, right. Keep dreaming, chap. We're judging you on exactly what you've been doing over these last 3 or 4 months. And we don't like it. We don't like the two-tiered policing. We don't like the two-tier judiciary. We don't like the fact that you're robbing the elderly. We don't like the fact that you're screwing over ordinary people. We don't like the fact you're hiking up energy prices. We don't like the fact that you are literally going out of your way to take political prisoners because you don't like what they say. And then there's the budget. Oh, Christ. The only good thing on there, which I can't even take advantage of because I'm not an alcoholic, is they've knocked a penny off the fucking beer tax. Big fucking whoop. While you're at it, you might as well draw a picture up of a man literally going out there with his thing hanging out and just pissing up the wall. And then colour the wall green and put dollar signs on it. Because that's what you're doing right now. You're pissing the taxpayer money up the wall to send billions in foreign aid. When that foreign aid money could be used to better ourselves. And right now, it's like we've had a leg cut off. And we're barely able to stand as it is. In order to stand up, you've got to stop fucking helping other countries. I'm not saying permanently, but I am at least saying until we can get ourselves back on our own 2 feet. But of course, these are words that will always be lost on Keir the Traitor Starmer, because the cold, bitter truth is, he doesn't want the best for this country. He wants what's best for the EU and the WEF and Davos. The man should never have been in power from day fucking one. And I can actually say that very safely. It would have been so funny if he literally came up to 10 Downing Street and then he's about to come into office and then I'm like, hi guys, I'm here to spend... No, you're going straight back out. It would have been so fucking funny if 2 people just went side by him, got their hands underneath his arms, and literally just dragged him out the fucking building. Because he has broken electoral law by having Lord Ali's mansion as his home address on the form when he was standing for Prime Minister in the general election. Which means he's not used his home address. Which means his time in power is illegitimate. Which means he can go to prison for this. Just like that. So there is a silver lining in the clouds, folks. We just need to have people who've got the balls to actually go up to our Prime Minister and impeach him. It's time to take out the trash and place it in the dustbin of history. Wait for that truck to come along and bury that rubbish exactly where it belongs. The bottom line is Keir the Traitor Starmer. Everything he could do wrong, he has done wrong. Everything that he doesn't know about, he could potentially do wrong. He can do no right, quite frankly. If he was shown a manual of how to do things the right way, he would do one of two things. He would scrunch it up and throw it away, or he would misinterpret the whole manual and then reverse the instructions. Man, 40 minutes. Fucking hell, I've really been waffling. But that's Keir the Traitor Starmer for you. I don't think anybody can ever argue at this point that he will be the worst country leader any country in the world has ever had. He won't be the shortest serving, because I think that's going to belong to Liz Truss. But he will most certainly be the most hated Prime Minister, most hated country leader of all time in all histories of each and every country. Because he's a man who is willing to protect and serve his enemies. He is protecting the enemies who would kill us. He is there lowering the drawbridge and holding up the portcullis and letting the foreign invaders destroy our country and turn it into the same third world shitholes that they've come from. And I will always say it like that because, as I said before, I'm not going to sugarcoat a motherfucking thing. I'm not going to mince my words. I will say it exactly how it is, and I will do my best not to bullshit you. If YouTube does decide to come for me, I will have contingencies in place to make sure that you'll be able to find a new channel. YouTube will not silence me. They will not silence the truth. Keir the Traitor Starmer will not silence me or the truth. We are the media. We will have justice, no matter what it takes. He should be thankful that people have not revolted sooner. Because if we were, as I said, back in like the 12th or the 13th century and they saw what Keir the Traitor Starmer is doing, they'd be marching up there and kicking his ass out of power. Just like that. He'd be gone. He'd be long gone. He'd be so far gone, you'd think he went into the DeLorean and accidentally put himself in the past, quite frankly. Keir the Traitor Starmer forever will be, forevermore, a traitor to his own people, hated by the masses, and alienating everyone he should be serving. I just hope that when this revolution happens, peaceful or violent, it's not too late. I don't want to see this beautiful country destroyed. I don't want to see, in any period of time, whether it's a year or 50, I don't want to sit here as I am drawing my last breaths on this earth and I look back and I think, if only we acted sooner. I don't want to think that. I want the best of this country, and the cold, bitter truth is sometimes we have to make really hard decisions. Not the ones that Keir the Traitor Starmer made. No, our decisions that help shape this country, that actually help it become what it rightfully should be. And we must not let treacherous snakes like Keir the Traitor Starmer lead us in the wrong direction and destroy the millennia of work that ordinary Brits have put into this place.